We all have a story to tell. Some are just beginning, others have been unfolding for years. Welcome to the Shaman Stories Podcast. Each week, I sit down with guests to explore their journeys into spirit, the challenges, awakenings, and the moments that shaped who they are today. So take a breath, settle in, and join me as we uncover the stories that lead us back to our true selves. All right, welcome everybody. I'm honored today to have Peter Jenx, author of the Thai Occult series. And I know you do a lot more stuff, so I'm going to let you get into that, but thank you for being here today.
It's a pleasure, actually, on this lovely morning.
Nice. So, I guess just give people a brief overview of what you do today, and then we'll kind of talk about how you got there.
Today, at this point, we are still continuing to open the occult system here and understand what's going on. And I don't think it's ever going to stop, to be honest, because there's avenues we've not really explored that much, and there's new forms of magic coming up all the time. And, it's turned into a way of life now, what we do, which is very, it's lovely. It's great. It's very comfortable. It's a nice hobby.
So what brought you to Thailand to even want to start, researching and committing? Because there's a lot more to it than just researching, and we'll get into that, where you had to build trust with the locals and even allow them to let you see what they do in the background. But what got you to that point of, was it just a visit, a holiday, and then you decided to stay, or was there some deeper calling?
No, well, it was 1991 I first came here, which is a long time ago now. And I knew I would always live here at some point, because it actually reminded me very much of the spirituality in the UK. And my early spirituality, which is what most people will connect with these things, will go through, was, visiting as many ancient stone circles as I could, just being in nature, being in all the special places with the right energies and everything else. And that's exactly the same here. And in many ways, it also reminded me of the UK, because the veil is equally thin. And so, also wherever you walk, you will see something of a supernatural nature at that time. Everywhere you looked, there was spirit houses. You walk past trees that were cascading in dresses because we're being praised for the resident spirits, and it was magic and supernaturalism to the absolute fore. And I started to enjoy it without necessarily entering it. And at that time, I did, we can never understand processes that are about to occur until after they've occurred. Yeah. So we can only look at some things in retrospect. And it appears that I was waiting to get to a point where I was going to accept the more magical side of this country when I was ready, or when I fully needed it. I did the usual things of staying here and trying to clean up my mentality by doing a Vipassana course and bits of meditation. Vipassana course is a 10-day silent retreat.
Okay.
To try and just begin the process of attempting to sort ourselves out from the damage that has occurred in all our lives, without whether we realize it or not. Yeah. And from that point, it's been a very long journey, because that was 92 I did that. It's been a very long journey before I started looking at magic itself, because I've always avoided magic. And I now understand why, in retrospect, is because I couldn't really study it and enter the system I was looking at here without tainting that system. with my previous experiences. So one of the few reasons it actually opened was because I was clean enough, I think, to accept the knowledge that was about to be given and pass the process on through the books as that process was occurring.
Nice.
Otherwise, it couldn't have worked. But it took me years. I don't think people today understand how long things should and could take. You know, I know it's the modern world, but people expect instant things, and it's really not how it works. You know, you'll know this in your own life, I'm sure, Jeffrey. You know, it's we have to take time.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing these days because everything's instant gratification now. It's like, I mean, cell phone goes off, you instantly get a response, you can instantly get what you need online. But for real deep inner work, yeah, it takes time and it takes patience, and you're going to mess up, you're going to screw up, you're going to get it right, you're going to go back,
All
you're
the
going to go
time.
forth.
But still am.
And it's a constant struggle, right? It just really is. And I think that's an interesting point you were saying where you weren't ready for it at the time. And if you were to try, you would have, some sense, corrupted it with your influence, trying to probably make it work the way you wanted it to.
It had to be done with no aforethought, with no aforethought before we actually entered this. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. I mean, that's not that. The writing process came after I'd actually benefited from getting into the system itself. You know, there was a cleaning process involved that liberated my life at that time. Something was holding me back. And we can't rush those things, you know. We have to wait for the right time for them to occur. But I must say, after we've gone through processes like that, it is easier to help the next generation along into a similar process. So, you know, this is the benefit of age and giving time to something, because the time we give pays itself back to yourself and to everybody else that you can help through that process.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting you say that too, because I teach this work with another teacher, and today he was like, I guess, confronting a student, but in his own way, and the student was taking it personally and kind of getting upset about it. And then the student wanted to talk to me after the class. He's like, I don't know what I did, but he's just calling me out. And I'm like, he doesn't want you to make the same mistakes he did. And that's all he was trying to tell you was, if you continue down this road, you're going to make these mistakes and there could be some consequences for you. But you didn't want to listen to it because you were stuck in your confidence ego of, I got this. You know, the young man's ego of, y'all don't know what you're talking about. I got this. And he's telling you that this is going to happen. And so at this point, I'm just going to say, if it happens, just remember this moment. But at the same token, it's sometimes we have to let the younger ones fail in order for them to even learn.
Failure is a really good part of learning.
Yep.
It's essential. We have to fall, you know. I mean, one of the things about doing the early Vipassana retreat was that I came out a complete mess. I'd broken too much in one particular section of time, and because I'm a stubborn bastard, so I did all the 10 days, didn't talk to anybody exactly as I should, and meditated as best I could at that time. Yeah. So when I actually, at the end of the 10 days, you sit down and have a quick talk, and I didn't recognize the words coming out of me. And I said things, and my inside was now split into two. It was split into what I had just relaxed and what was hanging on from previous life. Yeah. And when these words came out and I spoke to the lad who run the place, and I just went, like, what the fuck's going on? Sort of thing. And he said, yes, this happens. You have to re-enter life very slowly, and you're going to have to rewire yourself. And that process, 10 years,
Jeez.
I reckon, with some pretty heavy bits of depression thrown in there, and removing addictions and all the rest of it. And I'm really, it's that a process is still occurring, shall we say, because we're not monks, we're not arahants, we're not going to be world spiritual leaders. We are people who have gone down a particular path and continue down that path because we feel it is right for us.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, we have to accept whatever comes our way. And that was my first hurdle, which was quite a major one. And from doing the Vipassana retreat, I continued doing Tai Chi to actually get the physicality of what had been going on inside out, because the physical and the mental are incredibly closely related, which is why in Thailand and Buddhists do sitting meditation. It's all about it's just a different path. Nobody has to follow one path with any of this that we talk about. The structure of humanity itself is built upon different paths. There's millions of paths, and they are there to benefit us. And what we end up doing will hopefully have the same effect as if we'd done something else.
Nice.
It's just the passage of life that we have to accept. And that acceptance can be incredibly difficult, especially for young people who have not learned to be malleable with body and mind.
Yeah, it's definitely something that comes with age. And I remember 20s, 30s acting like, oh, I can do anything and I don't have to wait and I'm going to instantly pick it up. And it's like, no, these things take time, study, work, even doing shadow work. Everyone thinks I went to a shadow work summit for the weekend and now I'm perfectly healed. Like, no, you might have got a sliver of that onion and now you got to do some more work. And then there's the integration piece, like you mentioned, where it's like, now you got to integrate these parts, integrate the work that you just did. Because if you don't, you're just going to go back to the same habits that you started with.
And then you're going to have to do it all again. Usually the second, third, fourth, and fifth time you do it, it gets a bit easier, depending on how stubbornly things hold on.
True.
And it's just the process. We cannot rush life in a way whereby we're going to benefit from it. If we rush life, we just miss it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have to savor it. We have to savor life. And by savoring it, we might actually learn something. And we need to make choices about how we're going to learn, what we're going to do, who we're going to trust. Understand what works for us and what doesn't.
Yep.
And I think really one of the most difficult things is actually getting the right advice and the right understanding, which again is completely different for everybody.
Yeah, or even like and that's kind of what this show is for, is to show people different paths, right? Different ways of being, different modalities, different ways of thinking about life, and really just what resonates best with them. Because we all have something that resonates with us. We just might not know what it is in that moment. And what you do, even with the Thai magic, and that might resonate with someone who's listening versus someone who watched a podcast about someone doing Wiccan or pagan magic or chaos magic, for example. And I agree. There's no right or wrong way. It's what works for you and gives you the best growth for yourself, without hurting anybody else. Just what is your growth? What makes you get to where you need to go?
I mean, I think we also have to realize that actually all magic is the same.
Yeah.
Really, intrinsically. We just have to find the one that works for us, but also we may actually find in the end that the techniques to create magic are all very similar anyway.
Yeah, I would
It's
agree.
all, and it's just different paths to do it. You can do yoga and go into Indian magic. You can do, there's any way you can actually mix them all together and
True.
do it in that respect. I get bizarre questions, as you can probably imagine. And, I keep having to say to people, like, can I use a Thai talisman in this way? I said, well, give it a try.
Mhm.
Let me know how it works. Yeah, because I've never done it. You're going to have to tell me now. But there's no reason why it cannot be done in a slightly different way. And they might actually find a way to answer any questions from their own experiences, which is when things actually take on a true meaning within us.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, it's the same with energy work, magic, spiritualism in general. Like it's all coming from the same source or input. It's just what app are we using to access it? You know what I mean? It's what's our
And we
what's
are
what's our
lucky
entry
at this.
point? Yeah.
We are lucky at this time, despite all the stuff that's going on in the world, because we are in a period where ghosts are close. Working with necromancy is heightened and strong. Access to our dream world is very, very strong. And soon we're going to have dream and reality clashing. And nobody really knows what's going to happen. That's next month. Nobody really knows what's going to happen from that because it's going to, create. It's going to be different within everybody depending on their own astrology. And we are, even though this is going to be we know this is going to be a tumultuous decade or two, the possibilities for our learning and understanding are enormous.
Yep.
So, one of the bits of advice I keep hearing all the time at the moment is just withdraw into your own spirituality for the very reason that this is a prime time to understand the processes in the world that lead to wisdom.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people do that, especially since 2020. Like a lot of people.
That's when it started.
Okay, well, there you go.
It's a phase of Saturn. It's related. I mean, COVID was related to Saturn,
Okay.
but a lot of this is related to a particularly difficult phase of Saturn as far as the mind and living goes. But as far as spirituality goes, we have got great possibilities.
Mm.
And it lasts really until 2032.
Yep.
So this is the time to do what we're talking about. This is the time to take a step towards something. But I personally feel that we need to arm ourselves in a better way and have a more of an empirical understanding of these things. We should know about ourselves and what we are capable of before moving on, because there's too much influence and competition with things, and people are inventing stuff. They're inventing their abilities, and there's just a bit too much jostling going on. Like, I am sure in your younger days or at a certain time in your life, you knew you were going to follow this path. So there must be something within you related to an empirical setup
Mm.
that can be proven why you are here today and actually help guide you through the process. And I think that my particular makeup involves, I'm a scientist. I have a scientific slant. It's part of my birth chart. I have a scientific slant.
Mm.
And Weirdly, I've ended up knowing more about myself in the last 8 years than I did do for the previous 55. I had an understanding of it. I knew what I could do, but I couldn't relate it to something empirical. I couldn't relate it to a fact.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
it's been of a great service.
Yeah. Because thinking back on it, like I never grew up even considering shamanism or any aspect of it. Very logical person. I work in IT. Like it was, ex-military, just straight down the road. And then all of a sudden, but I always felt I could do things. But I always thought it's because I read, a lot of fantasy books as a kid. But I always felt like, no,
Well,
I
but
could.
why are you reading the fantasy books? I would
Yeah.
respond. Yeah. So, I mean, we've helped a lot of people understand themselves more from this slant. And it's pretty rare that people who say have a desire to work with ghosts do not have the ability or their ability is clouded. Yeah. 3 in 20,
Mhm.
2 in 20, something like that. Um, so, we don't know why we start getting into fantasy and everything else. It could be the first easily accessible knowledge and understanding towards raising our own spirituality, because everything ends up being important.
Yeah. Interesting. And so with the books that you wrote, you like what started that process for writing them? I mean, when I read them and everything too, and I mean, you had to earn a lot of trust. You had to show them that you're on the up and up, that you weren't trying to steal their information or just, you really
Well,
had to work with
oddly,
them.
the reason I started was because people were stealing their information.
Really?
Yeah, because when I got into this, um, and got the first amulet that just cleared me and allowed me to move forward. Um, I was investigating it, and everybody was saying different things. And it was obviously obvious that somebody would go to one of the magicians, talk to them, be told something, completely fucking misunderstanding it, and then put it forward as their own opinion, rather than quoting the actual magician themselves. So I wrote the first book I wrote, which thankfully you don't have, it's dreadful, um, is the old red book, which you just printed, I think, 100 copies or something. And it was what we thought we knew. Because being a scientific by nature, we had to start off at the absolute beginning, right? What do we think we know? From that, I went to and decided to do a book about Satyan because that was the most accessible.
Mhm.
There's festivals for Satyan in Thailand. It's not as nowhere near as popular as it used to be because, the society has moved on, but it is still there and it's still very important to people. And so set up a series of questions that I thought would be interesting to understand more about this nature and went to see 7 or 8 Ajahns. An Ajahn is a lay magician. Ajahns in Bangkok and Nakhon Pathom, just outside Bangkok, and then around this region where I now live in Chiang Mai. And we asked them very similar questions to see what differences we could get out of it. And then after the first 2 or 3, I started throwing more questions in and told them that we were going to do the book and everything. Their name was going to be in it. The interviews would be translated from them, printed verbatim, and photographs of them and their work. Now, because I'm an older man, they trusted me the one time. Right, okay, let's give it a go. And we did it and printed it, and I could go back and show them a book in English with their photographs in, their interviews translated, and pictures of their work. Then I mentioned to them that what I really wanted to do was a book about the actual magic system, the Sayasat magic. And everybody was on board
Nice.
because I'd done what I said I was going to do. And they'd had many, many, many examples where people turn up and don't do what they say they're going to do. And that book ended up being 518 pages long.
Yeah, it's a tome, but it's definitely. So I got it right here for the first one. I got the other two on the shelf, but I mean, it's a tome with like pictures and everything.
Yeah. It's there's two versions of that book. You're lucky enough to get the one edited by Jack Grail, lovely man, and he was very kind to edit it because the original one it was circular. There's a saying in Thailand about, say, misen. It's like many lines. I have many lines, so there's like many connections, and everything's complicated and all mixed up together. And the book was written in that sense and was slightly hypnotic, the original writing, which used to drive people mad and give people headaches. And so Jack kindly asked, because that's how my head was, Jack kindly turned around and edited it fully, which is what you just held up in your hands, which was a really good way to move forward, actually. You know, it's like, because I'd never read a magic book deliberately because I knew loads of magicians and I didn't want to be an acolyte. I wanted to be their friend.
Yeah, and I said, I read it and it was just like, it's just fascinating what they do over there versus how we perceive they do things and what we do here in the West. I mean, just the way they work with the dead and honor the dead, and it's just completely different than how we do things here. And it boggled my mind just seeing, like, here's a display case with a dead person in it, and this is what we're going to do with their remains, and we're going to make things out of it. And depending on how they died, it's going to depend on what we can do with them and work with them, and all sorts of just nuances. Every little thing just has to be a certain way for them to work it out for certain reasons.
Yeah. Everything is connected. And it's because they haven't forgotten anything. They've not lost anything. We think there's only two forms of Wicca, which is the knowledge. And Wiccan comes from Wicca. It's the same root. It's a Sanskrit root word. And there's only two forms of Wicca that we can't find. And they're looking for it. Everything else has been kept. So, but there's, that large book was made in 2018. It was printed in 2018 at the beginning of the year. And we have learned so much since, but it does not devalue the original knowledge in that book because it provided the door to open. It pushed the door open. But, like looking at, say, how they use particular pride, they also have a pantheon of herbs and other sources of materials, supernatural materials, that they can also add to balance certain things off, to bring an attribute, to balance off the elements. It is so complicated. And we still don't really fully understand their creation of a spirit within an amulet either. Because I've did 3 interviews about this over the years with the Jan Apichai, which is in his book, which is number 3. And we learn a little bit, a tiny bit more each time we did it. Yeah. But you can just sense that, no, that is the end of that particular examination unless you come and study it properly. If you spent the time to study it properly, you would also not tell people because they're not going to understand it, or they're going to abuse it or cause themselves difficulty. So, they're trying to avoid any karmic backlash as well, sort of thing. So what we learned was what they could tell us, not what there is, because they are being a true teacher and not wanting to overload us.
Yeah, and I mean, even like you said, for safety reasons. I mean, you want people to know about it, but if they give away the secret sauce, if you will, the recipe of how to do it, someone might try to take shortcuts, someone might try to add a little bit of spice to it, and then who
It's going
knows
to be
what
a
would
mess. They're
happen.
going to mispronounce
Yeah.
everything. It's just going to be, it's just going to be a weird courier magic. But it's been fascinating to watch the process of all this and to watch how they dealt with me as well, because there's a balance there between not wanting to give away knowledge and wanting to be seen as being knowledgeable, yeah, and to help people. And there's a few occasions, some of the people we interviewed were just knew exactly how to pitch what we asked for. And we would always say, we don't want the witcher, we don't want the way in technically, we don't want the kata, the mantra, but we do want the story. And some of them just being incredibly smart men just get it instantly, you know. At Krubet Apiwat in number 2 was just the absolute joy because he got it instantly and kept throwing in things that would make Bon, my husband, just roll over with laughing. Just with a glint in his eye while he was doing it. He knew exactly what he was doing, where he was talking about how they use mercury and collect natural mercury from the environment that they can then use within certain talismans. One of them is like a mercury amalgam called a palot, and he made a fantastic one. They wear them in rings. That's a palot.
Oh wow, that's nice.
Yeah. It's just a mercury amalgam blessed. That was blessed for a year. 514 blessing processes in that one thing.
Jeez.
And when the Kruber was talking about it and how they collect it by using rotten meat, and got to the end of the story and explained it fully, and then said, well, of course, the meat they used was pork generally because it's the closest to people. And at the end, he said, well, of course, we could use human meat, but it tends to be a bit explosive. And this is from a monk, and Bob's just killing himself laughing, But I mean, beautiful, incredibly smart man, and really understood it. And on the other side, somebody once told me the way they do create a body within a sakyam, because if it's got a body on it, like, if it's got there's a lizard and a centipede, they can actually put a lizard and a centipede in there as a spirit.
Oh.
And he explained it, and I just said, no, stop. Stop. Don't say any of this. Never tell anybody any of this. He was new to the game. Never tell anybody any of this. You can't, because they do not understand the millions of other things that you have to learn before you will be told this, which again builds more trust, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's super important I mean, I have 4 books here. I think there's like 1 or 2 more different styles. I forget looking on the website. And you even said you're working on basically another one right now of
Take
new
a long
stuff.
time. Yeah. But, I mean, the only one you haven't got is the supernatural Tylon one.
Yeah, that's the one I was missing. Yeah.
And there's only 108 of those, and they all sold out very quickly. And I just printed it up just for people could have one, basically. We made that book during COVID because we could travel finally. So I decided to go and visit all the supernatural places that I knew and document them and help people find them themselves. And it was such fun. It was such fun. And it cost way more than I'll ever get back from the book to actually do the book. But the experience of doing the book was just magnificent because I had a chance to go to some of the remarkable supernatural locations here. And there's hundreds of them. Hundreds. And one of the things I always recommend to people if they are into this sort of thing is find the supernatural locations, make a pilgrimage, sit there. Maybe if you can stay for a couple of days and just open yourself up to it, you know, because it's incredibly beneficial. And there's a few places I've been back to twice. One of them is the Naga Mountain, Pulanka, which is impossible to get to. But we're well worth a try. And it does not conform to science, that place. The way the rocks weather, I'm a geologist, I studied to become a geologist, and it does not conform to geological science, that place, because there's huge stone heads, the shape of lizards and snakes, just in the open, that have weathered that way and weathered the same way underneath. It does not conform, even though that particular rock is very widespread all the way around the world. As far as we can tell, this is the only place where that occurs. There's like there'd be a huge bed that's just covered in snake scales, the shape of snake scales. So it became a Naga location, and people go on pilgrimage there. And it's fabulous. It's just remarkable. And on the other side to that, you can also go and be in a supernatural location in temples here, because a lot of the stupas hold high remains, and and we visited most of the good ones, who are the ones that we know about. There's thousands of them, and some of them will have remains of the Buddha or remains of his disciples, or we've just helped build one through donations at the temple of one of the masters of Ajahn Apicai, Lon Pocharuai, because he has the spiritual remains of his lineage, his magical lineage, going back to Luang Pusok, who's incredibly famous from the Second World War. And he wanted somewhere to house it. It was one of the last things he did in this existence. He's 84 or 5 now. And we consecrate that stupa, Chedi, in March.
Nice.
So it's like his final great work. And we've been lucky to be able to pay for 80% of it for him, And the remains they use are from highly spiritual people that where crystals will grow on their remains after death. And there's a whole kind of knowledge about these things and different types of it and how they grow and who they grow on. And some people don't rot after death as well. That's another form of relic. So I mean, but in every country there are supernatural locations. The Catholic Church has got truckloads of dead old saints that are still there and can be visited. And these are remarkable remains, no matter what you believe. These are potent supernatural remains, potent spiritual remains. And if you include every religion, there's some incredible places to go and experience these things. I mean, even the Jigsaw in Mecca, that's a meteorite under that, for God's sake, a metal meteorite, And there's just some of the most remarkable places that we should experience if we have the opportunity and learn from.
Yeah, when I was in the military, so I got stationed in Iraq, and
Uh,
right outside of my base was a ziggurat where apparently Abraham was at, and I
wow.
think might have been buried there if I remember the story correctly, but it was like right outside the wire, and it was just like I'm looking at this thing, but couldn't go there,
Yeah,
because of everything that was going on. But I'm just like, that's incredible.
yeah. It's and it's everywhere,
Yeah.
every country. If you're in Egypt, go and stand next to a mummy.
Yep.
See how that feels.
Yeah, I actually made it to Egypt when I was younger and
Wow.
was at the pyramids for Millennium. So for 99 New Year's Eve to 2000. So I was actually there for
Wow.
that, thinking Pink Floyd would show up, but it was Jean-Michel Jarre. He was like a French trance DJ.
I know
Yeah.
Jean-Michel. I've never forgiven him personally, but
It was an incredible show, I'll say that. But we were staying, we met these, I'm, he was a student and he let us stay at his house and he hooked us up. We went out into the desert, hung out with the Bedouins and everything. But like I walk outside his house and we're walking around the village, and then he had like one of the oldest step pyramids just in his village, like it was no big deal. And I'm like, what is this? He's like, yeah, it's da 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 da. I'm like, well, this is better to me than the three pyramids over there with the Sphinx. I'm like, this is awesome.
yeah. If you can't go to it, you go to the British Museum if you're in England and go to the Mummy Room. Go early because it's always full of kids. We have no excuse not to experience these things. America must be full of them as well. We might have
Right.
lost some, but they can be resurrected in the right circumstances. I firmly believe all this. And they provide refuge and a pool of understanding that we can go and sit in and grow with and let it benefit us. Yeah.
Do you feel, since you've been there for so long, like have you seen like I guess a change or maybe I don't want to say degrading or downfall, but like maybe less and less people following the old ways in Thailand? Do you feel like maybe there's a concern that they're not going to carry on those traditions? I mean, they've been
Well,
doing it for a long time, but
we kind of knew, I kind of knew starting this. Okay, I've seen a lot of Thai history. I've been here, coming here for a long time.
Mhm.
And if you look at what else they've given the world, Thai food, Thai boxing, Thai massage, da 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 da. And usually they go out and then come back with other understanding and a different understanding, which then influences Thailand.
Mhm.
Yeah. I knew at the time we needed to document this as we were doing it. And I also knew especially from talking to Gordon White actually on Room Soup, that it could be used to repair a lot of systems that had lost knowledge,
Mhm.
which is vital, and or to act as an anchor for them to change it back. It doesn't even need to be following the Thai way, but they can give advice on it, on whatever it is. Yeah. Because they've got the breadth of experience and so far we can only find two forms of magic that they've lost. Yeah. But the main thing is, I think that it's changed here because middle class people don't follow magic.
Mhm.
They're comfortable already. They don't need anything. Yeah. And it was occurring at the time as well. If you go back into in the 90s, this was just, I went to the tattoo festival at Wat Bang Prat in about 94, I think it was. And it was just insanity, all these guys going into trance and running around like tigers or hobbling like Rusi or whatever else. And it was just wonderful insanity. And, that now is a more controlled, it now reflects what the society is like. But societies change as well.
Mhm.
So in many ways, I work specifically with 2 or 3 ajahns, and one of them we are helping and enabling him to go and study in other parts of the country for magic he wants to study that will benefit his own abilities and the magic he already knows.
Mhm.
He's going to go next month to study some more. And so, I knew we'd kind of end up being a refuge for knowledge at the same time, because they're now trying to further persuade the monks not to produce knowledge, not to produce magic, because there's an enormous amount of Buddhist magic here.
Mhm.
The monks used to also do prime magic, the ghost magic, but they've kind of stopped a lot of that now. So that is being held by the lay magicians. But if I talk to any Thai person and the subject gets on to ghosts or magic, whatever else, all the interest in it is still there. They just don't need it at this time.
Okay.
And things are going to change. And if they change dramatically, people will return to magic or something or spirituality that will aid them. And the easiest one is to return to magic itself here.
Mhm.
And I think that's going to occur to a certain degree over the next 6 years.
Okay. Yeah, because I always worry about the influences, especially when the West gets into a new place. And you see a lot of that in like South America too, with like in Peru with the ayahuasca stuff, and people they're starting to just do things to make a buck versus to, truly be in that lineage and truly explore what it means to present that work and do that work. And then others don't want to do that work anymore because they can go be a YouTube star or whatever it is that is
Well,
popular
there's
these
not
days.
one person yet come here. There's 2 different ways of ability here. There's
Hmm.
2 different ways to study the magic. One is to use the magic, and one is to create it. We go through a journey just by using the magic because it involves the saying of kata, it involves praise, it involves connection, it involves spiritual growth and our understanding of what our possibilities are within, what the possibilities are within ourselves.
Hmm.
Yeah? On the other side of that, there is the people who create the magic, and really it's a thankless task. And I cannot count the amount of people because it's a thankless task. I'll explain that first. Because basically, a lot of magicians have a difficult life.
Hmm.
They can't do anything else, and they're stuck. And some people don't find success with it and all the rest of it. And of all the people who visited here, the amount of times I've heard, "How do I study Thai magic?" And I wish I had a cup of tea for every one. It'd be full. And then I say to them, the first job before you start is to understand Thai, be able to write it, maybe have an idea about another of the languages here because there's at least 5, and have a grounding in Buddhism, and then you can come and we'll try and find you someone to study with.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
That's it. So basically, leave it to the ajahns.
Yeah.
One of the things about being a conduit to people visiting here is that I keep things very real indeed. And, you get people going around saying that they can do this and do that, and they've studied with these people, and then they normally ask me, I just go, no, they haven't. They might have had a conversation. That is not the same. There is no one outside this country yet with what's called a cancru. A cancru is an assembly of stuff that connects you to your lineage, and you have to replace it and remake it every year. And nobody has one yet, so nobody has lineage power
Hmm.
because the lineage, like in many other forms of magic, is one of the sources of power that they can replenish. And with the good guys, the good magicians, when they use their lineage, you can often see them come. You can often sense them around you, you know. So we were discussing, one person was very close to deciding to come and study. And I asked her, Jan, what do we do here? Yeah, and they might still come and do it. And I said, well, first of all, he said, can they speak Thai and have Buddhism? I said, no, but they have ability. I know they have ability to create magic. Okay. What do they want to learn? And in this particular very strange example, they just want to learn how to bless water because it relates to something in her life from her father that is very dear. And I'm not going to say what because it sounds quite a secret. And she wants to know how to bless it. And I said, introduction 6 months, and then come back again for another 6 months after that. And we might be able to do that, something that specific as we go along. But then I'll help her to learn how to bless water. And then we discuss what the wages would be, because this ain't going to be free.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah. And so we decided, like, he just said, what does it cost to learn something for 6 months in England or the States? So I said, I gave him a ballpark, and he went, yeah, okay, I'd do it for that.
Nice.
So they cannot enter into doing something whereby they will teach everything. It's just impossible. You've got to also understand the culture, which is incredibly deep. But it is possible to learn certain specific things. Usually the first thing people learn should be Sakyan. Generally, people will be a Sakyanajan before they become a magician, or before they can make talismans and things like that. But if we're keeping it very specific, somebody might actually come and do it. And Ajahn Dewey said that if he has a foreigner come, he will give them a cancru, not for the usual purpose, though. It's not necessarily to connect them to the lineage per se, even though it will. It is to protect Ajahn from them doing wrong and to protect them from them doing something wrong. So, but they would have a cancru, and that would be the first time that I know of anybody outside this country being granted a cancru.
That'd be interesting for sure. And then I guess with that, if that person were to do it, or somebody else, for example, would they then be allowed to teach that specific thing to somebody else outside of the country, or would that person
They may then understand why they shouldn't, or why they should.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think one of the great needs to be taught to people is how to work with land spirits, especially in the States, because your land spirits are rampant and not very pleasant. And we've lost the control of those land spirits. So learning about that would be one of the sections of the magic that I would recommend to somebody. And then, teach people that, because that would be an enormous amount of merit, because you are helping people. I always envisage there being like a huge network of people who can go around and help people sort out difficult areas with difficult spirit, because the effect is huge. We don't even realize. I personally believe it's one reason why America is so violent.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm here and working with this work too. There's a lot of. I mean, there's land spirits, there's lost souls, there's all sorts of things going on that people just don't see anymore or even want to acknowledge.
And then those things become uppity.
Yeah. And they
Yeah.
don't
Now,
like that.
as I was saying before about learning how to open when you go to beneficial spiritual locations, the main benefit of that is then learning how to close. Because there's many places in everywhere that you really need to be closed, especially if you're going in caves
Mhm.
or jungles or forests and places like that. You need to close off. We've had quite a few situations where we've had to get somebody out of somewhere that we visited and stand on either side of them to get them out because they were being attacked and were not closed enough. They couldn't close themselves off. It's not being dramatic. It was just kind of, you could just see them. And it's like, come on, we need to go. You need to close yourself off because you're being attacked. She could kind of sense it and was panicking a bit. And, the best way to learn that is to learn how to open
Mhm.
and then know when to close it.
And I guess one thing I've been curious about too is the amulets. So
Mhm.
when they're created with for a purpose. Different things go into them. We kind of talked about it earlier, like maybe a piece of a human or certain herbs, certain plants. And then when you get the amulet to work with the amulet, there's a mantra that comes along with it. And is
Usually.
usually,
Yeah.
and is with that mantra, do they need to repeat it like daily? Is that just like once in a while? How does that?
A daily is best.
Uh,
Whenever you have any sort of needing its help, it's always good to say the kata. But you have to also remember that kata is magic in itself.
mhm.
The sound of magic is mantra and kata traditionally in India and Thailand. And so you're wearing a construction that will help in certain ways, but you're also entering into a journey to help yourself as well to embody magic. Because the idea in the end is that we are full of magic and we fulfill the magic itself. There's lots of things you can do about putting magic within you as well. For instance, um, there's a kata called Namo Tassa, which is the classic Thai Buddhist kata, Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa, and you normally say it 3 times. But particularly in this decade, we should practice saying that kata because it provides refuge with the Buddha. And also, we should bless all the water we drink using it.
Hmm.
So, instead of tea, this is water. And you would, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa, Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And then blow on it and drink it. Every water you drink, because then you are putting a blessing inside. When you are saying kata, you are affecting the mind. There are blessings you can put inside that will increase not only that the namo tassa inside will increase your cleanliness, um, and the way you repel negative things and also provide refuge with the Buddha. But you can also use kata that actually provide protection. You can use kata that specifically knock things away. Reflective katas, bounce back katas. And, there's just millions of them. There's so many of them. And, but embodying the magic is the eventual goal.
Nice. I'm gonna ask you to send me that water blessing in an email, and then I can.
Yeah,
Because
sure. I mean, you can do it with anything. You
okay.
can, if you have um, magic within, if you have the focus within, if you have the ability to hopefully pass on magic. I don't study the passing on of magic. I just study the Qatar, but my astrology suits magic, especially prime magic. You can use, I think, really, you could use any Qatar or mantra type thing that you already say.
Okay.
As well, but I will happily send you a recording of it. And there's loads of them you can do. Like, I've just started a new form of meditation. I'm as bad as everybody else at meditation. But I've got some mercury beads which I use, and sometimes I'll just put them on my head because they kind of make your head blow up. And every time I breathe in, I just think put, and every time I breathe out, I think to. So Putto is the Buddha, yeah, and it is just a way to try and still ourselves in the morning, because this is why we also do Qatar in the morning. And when we pour water into a glass for the altar, which we do most mornings, we say Namo Tassa for doing that as well, while holding it and putting our focus within the water. There's lots of different tricks we can use to build our connections to things in that way, because the connection benefits both things and benefits everybody around us. And it also pulls us out of modern thought and thinking. There's two things I've always thought apply: silence above noise. Yeah, seek silence. Sometimes seek solitude in your daily life. Even if it's just something, everywhere's so fucking noisy nowadays, Jeremy. So when I go on a flight, I just, noise cancelling changes your life. It's wonderful. I can actually stand being near people.
Yeah, I use mine a lot too.
And the other one was stillness above thought. We have to learn how to be still, which is one of the things that, one of the reasons why we do Qatar as well. It has an effect on the mind. The more you do, the quicker we can build a spirit body within us, and the quicker we can become focused. And everybody should have a set of these monk beads. Very, very helpful. Everybody must have 5 minutes in a day where they can just do the same kata, putto, just putto, 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 putto. But every putto has to be the same, has to sound the same. And it has to come out the same. You have to feel it emerge on the lips. You have to feel the chest starting to compress. You have to feel the finger moving the beads along. And when you think you're really good at it, you're probably not, because the next thing would be, I shouldn't tell you this in public, but the next thing would be do it again. Then as soon as a thought comes into your mind, start again. Might take an hour or two, but you'll get there. Yeah. And then that's one little door opened. So yeah, I make my living by passing on information and passing on amulets from a good source and things like that, and helping people with candle magic and all that sort of stuff. But I also answer questions.
Right.
Just keep them short. I beg everybody. I don't need to know the context of the question. Just ask the question. Yeah.
Going back to the kata, is there a kata that could be used for land spirits? Like maybe you could use it on your property? No? Okay.
No.
That'd be too easy.
There are amulets that can be used to protect the property. And go in each corner of the land that the property is sat on, and you will wear another one as well. It's called a wurtanu. It's a really old bull-shaped amulets. We've just made a set of them specifically for protecting properties, and specifically in the US, because your astrology is terrible.
Yeah.
And we all know that it's not going to settle down anytime soon. But as far as actual land spirits, it's quite complicated. Under my land spirit shrine at the front of the house, there's a tukrut, and it has to be blessed by somebody who knows what they're doing. And we're just building another house across the road, which is where any banging you can hear is coming from. And he will also activate that particular spirit house. So that's much more involved. But if you wanted something at the corner of your property there's actually the Qatar for that is incredibly easy, and it's a reflective Qatar. It won't do the job of a land spirit. Land spirits can bring good fortune. They can bring benefits to life. The amulets that go in the four corners of the land is just there to reflect things away and keep bad people away. But it's ancient magic and it works. Both of them are ancient magic and they work. But the consecration of a land spirit altar is not easy. And that's why most land spirit shrines in this country are actually not blessed. We had to get a dancer to take away the one that was on the road opposite, on the land opposite that we bought. And I showed him a photograph and said, "It's not consecrated, is it?" He said, "No, that's not consecrated." He said, "It's full of ghosts, wandering ghosts waiting for offerings, you see." So this is why people come here and buy a little land spirit altar and take it home and just put it on the land. Oh, it's a Thai land spirit altar. But you just end up being full of wandering ghosts and you're making offerings to them, which can really pull all your good fortune away. Don't do it. There are other ways to help with that. You can get, there's a magic candle that will actually help consecrate a land spirit shrine. If you're going to take a little land spirit altar home from Thailand, there's a magic candle that can be burnt there once a year to keep a land spirit there and keep it under control.
Okay.
And then you have to undertake, weekly offerings and Qatar and a bit of incense. There's many ways to get around things rather than having to learn how to actually consecrate a land shrine. But it just takes a little bit of effort.
I mean, what do you think we here in the States could do without going, I guess, to Thailand and trying to get special training? And what is there I don't know, a principal offering people can give to land spirits just to help kind of mitigate things? Like, is there something we could do to make things better?
I can't give that advice.
Okay.
Besides what I've already said, as far as getting a land spirit candle made,
okay.
And which will help control the land itself and the spirits on the land. Because basically, there's two or three types. One is blessed by a deity. They pull the deities down into some, most of them. Some are just grandmother, grandfather, which is an ancestral land spirit. There'll have been somebody die on that land and they have to be praised. And, if you don't praise them, they can really mess about with your life. So when you consider how many people died in the US during the process of it becoming the United States, it's of great importance, really. But I do think there's other things that can be done by the individual to understand themselves. And it's had a great effect on me this last 5 or 6 years. And that is to understand yourself astrologically. Because Thai astrology has grown up around within a magical society, and they can actually answer questions that we need to know. Yeah. What can we do? What are we able to do? How can we work with ourselves? What are we susceptible to? What do we have to do to make ourselves stronger? And I'll use my own example, if I may, to help explain this. I always knew that I could see ghosts. I've always had incredible intuition, and I've done more drugs than most people. And I work best in the evenings. I work best in what are known here as grey area businesses. And I am incredibly lucky, and I have a scientific mind. Yeah, I've always known that. So after the first book, I was interested in trying to find a way to enter this system in a formal way, to understand why we are entering it and to know what we can do. Because when I was getting into this, I could have turned around on the first few months I was there and bought a fetus's arm in oil as an amulet. It was beautiful, yeah, but incredibly strong. I kind of knew I could use ghosts and work with ghosts, but we don't know whether that's true or not. Yeah, we might be fooling ourselves or wanting it as a desire instead of a fact. Yeah. And after the first book, I wasn't planning to do another book, but then we started talking to Ajahn Apichai. And it came up in conversation whereby he'd just done a reading for his Luxit. A Luxit's an apprentice. He said, and actually, it turns out that he could be a better magician than him. He said, and usually some magicians would get rid of them because of that. Yeah. But he wanted to teach him. He likes the guy. I said, you can do what? How do you know that? And I said, just explain that again. So he explained it again. He can check the guy's astrology to see how he will learn magic, make a living from it, whether that's possible, what he should work with. And he stopped at that point. I said, okay. I said, and what if it's not correct? He said, well, I'll then make an amulet that will correct their birth chart. Now, with being scientifically minded, I just thought, wow. And also with being me, I just thought that should be available as an amulet, as something that people can acquire. Because, we're all born with different astrology. And we don't know it. We don't live within it. We are not taught an understanding of astrology in that way in our culture or in most cultures. But in Thailand, they are. So we did a reading for myself. I said, I'd like to know what's going on. And so we did quite a long reading, and Bon was translating. He said, okay. He said, do I have any negative stars? Any weak stars? He said, not really. I said, what are my strong stars? He said, Jupiter, Rahu, Mars, and Saturn. I said, what does that mean? And he said, well, Jupiter is the planet of learning and luck and good fortune and good thinking and easier passage of life. He said, and your Jupiter is incredibly strong. He said, Rahu means a strong Rahu for you gives you the ability to work with ghosts and provides incidental luck and means that you work in grey areas very, very well indeed. So you can work with magic because you've got a strong Rahu. The strong Mars means you're forthright. And I'm thinking, well, no shit, Sherlock. And the strong Saturn means you're actually very stubborn and resolute in this case. I was like, yeah, my mum would agree with that. And then we carried on the reading, and it came up. He said, well, because you've got no weak stars, you can actually use any element because we're all born with a balance of elements within us that come from the astrology. He said, but you can't use Earth because of your Saturn being too strong, because you've got too much Earth, which is why you are stiff. Yeah? He said, really, you should wear fire. So I got a fire amulet and I put it on. He said, because it will give you more energy, protect your health, blah, blah, blah. Put it on. It was like, it's like a rocket taking off. And it's just metal. It's alchemy. Yeah? And a certain form of blessing. And a spell on the back of it. And, I thought, wow, okay. He said, you also use the other ones whenever you feel the need to, but you've got to understand them and wear them first so you understand how they work. So I got wind and water as well. I like wind, you can feel it moving. And I don't like water, it's too wishy-washy, and I'm not a wishy-washy sort of person. And then we got to the point that said, well, have I got, he said, what else is unusual in there? He said, well, you've actually got the correct relationship to Neptune, whereby you are clairvoyant. He said, but for you, this is after working with him for a while. He said, I've always wondered about your intuition because you come up with really good ideas that I can't come up with because Ajahn lives within the magic itself. He can't look at it like being in a sweet shop. It's like being in a library. And he can only access things when people ask, and he'll just go and get that out of his library. He can't see it in the way I see it. He said, but your Neptune means that your intuition is astonishing, and you will know what you need going into the future, which has proved to be the case. We're always working 6 months ahead. Yeah. And so, it turns out we can look at how people can use magic, what they should use, what they will benefit the most from. How can they have the best birth chart? How can they improve certain aspects of their birth chart so that they can do some of the things they have the desire to do? So we started offering readings to be able to do these things. 95 times out of 100, people already have an inclination as to what they can do. Mm-hmm. They know instinctively and will ask questions, even if they don't know why they ask that question. Yeah? The other 5%, unfortunately, I get very upset sometimes. We had one guy asking about whether he could be a magician. And Ajahn said, no, because you don't know when something is ready. When an amulet or a spell is completely full, when it's got the most, you can't feel the transfer of energy. Yeah. And I had a very irate email back saying, how dare you, da 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 da. I've been doing this for decades, da 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 da. So I let it go on for 2 or 3 emails and then just said, why did you ask? We don't know you. I don't know who you are. We don't want to know who you are because it affects the reading. And that is what's in your astrology. And he stopped writing after that. He got it. Yeah. And he wrote about 6 months later and he said, what does Ajahn recommend I do as far as helping myself? So Ajahn gave him good advice for free, And so even that was a method for growth. So this has all had the most astonishing effect on me over particularly the past 6 years, whereby I now trust what I think. And I now trust more what I feel. and understand as well. And I feel that is what's missing, is that aspect is what causes a lot of the searching online and a lot of the drama and all the rest of it. We don't know.
Mhm.
We don't understand it. We don't know what we should work on to be able to improve ourselves in the way that we want to improve ourselves. And it's not about joining a system. These are just tools that will help you with whatever you want, whatever people want to do, you know. And there's not that many, but they do make a difference if they are necessary. And I would suggest the balancing the elements and looking at the relationship to magic has the most effect on life from my own experience, but that might be different to other people's experience.
Yeah, and that's the hard part with the internet. There's so much knowledge where we can try all these cool things, but then there's so much knowledge where we don't know where to start. But I
Well,
like
sorry,
I was just gonna
please.
say, but I like what you said with, start with something as simple as the astrological reading to kind of get an idea of how you're made up and who you are. And yeah, you might not agree 100% with what you see, but maybe you'll get some insights where some deep reflection, you'll be like, oh yeah, no, I am a good communicator. I am not very good with
Mm.
this. I am a little bit stronger in this area. Okay, that makes sense. What can I now do with it?
Yeah, I mean, really, the secret with this is asking the right questions.
Mhm.
Yeah, and taking the time to ask the right questions and making them short enough that a jam will get it.
Okay.
We tend to associate a question with our life history. And one of the thing that takes the most time with these is me cutting down the questions to like 5 words, because that actually gives the chance for the best and most evolved reading and the best and most direct understanding of something. And the questions people come up with relate to something within them, of
Mhm.
course, that we might not be aware of ourselves on a day-to-day basis. And doors can be opened. And I would say, even if you wanted to actually balance your birth chart, one, two, maximum of three amulets. Sometimes none. We did a reading yesterday. I've never seen a chart like it. Even the jam was like, wow. There was 6 strong planets in his birth chart. Never seen it before. But there was also a clash in his birth chart that stopped him using some aspects of those beneficial planets. So it ended up, he recommended one amulet. That's all he needed. He said, and it'll have a tremendous effect on your life. He said, because with that astrology, if you can just release all the energy that's coming from that astrology, you're fine. You'll have a very good life. So you never know what's going to turn up. You get some fascinating things, but we have to understand that they cannot tell you unless you ask the question, because they don't want to impose on your life, give you the information too early, or say something that's going to create difficulty.
Mhm.
Yeah? And the other question we don't answer is, what's my purpose in life? This is a modern idea that somebody else gives a shit about what your purpose is. You have to find your purpose through your own life experience. People cannot find it for you. If they do, you will be disappointed in the end.
Yeah, and like we talked before the show started, that's where this podcast came from, because people were asking me, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, what's your biggest issue right now? Let's work on that. Like, what can I
Yeah.
help you with?
Yeah.
Unless you want to become a shaman and you want me to teach you or show you the way, I don't know. Like, what works, what resonates for you? What you feel, you know?
Start with one door or one door, just cracking open a little.
Yep.
Start with something you feel inside and ask the right question, and you will get an answer.
It's well said. Yeah. Well, yeah, I really do appreciate your time with this, man. It's been a
A
blast.
pleasure.
I've been, like I said, for me, it's fanboying out because I've been reading your books for a couple of years now.
But this is what it's here for.
Yeah.
This is what people don't really understand in that respect. Yeah. One of the reasons that we ended up going quite far with this, and we're still on the journey to it as well, is because I firmly believe that this can help people.
Mm.
Even if it's just with one aspect of their life, that because they're involved in other stuff. This is not about collecting acolytes. This is about enabling, yeah, or easing, because that also has a meritus. It's another meritus action. Yeah. So, life is carried by actions that are beneficial to other people. If we can carry our life that way, life will have its own momentum and its own purpose, and will end up and will be fortuitous. So this is just about making something available that isn't. We were lucky enough to meet a young Ajahn who seems to have a photographic memory. He was a monk when he was 11 or 10. He was doing something called tapping Naman Prai out of a corpse at 11 with the help of an undertaker.
Jeez.
You ask him something. Like recently, we asked him about the Macau Sai, which it means dog enters the intestines or dog enters the gut. And it's a really old, well, there's many. Ajahn just said, which type? I've got 7. I said, the oldest one where it creates incredible lust. Yeah. He said, yeah. He said, I've got that one. He said normally they would warn people not to use this. But I think we're all beyond all that at the moment. So if people want to go out and be incredibly lusty, it might be a good distraction from the current astrology. So we ended up working out how best to help people with it. And also, he has got the ability to adapt certain aspects of some of the other magic we work with to be able to offer something very strong with less problems associated with it. Finding this guy was incredibly lucky. Out of all the people we interviewed, what we have out of Ajahn Apichai has had the most effect worldwide.
Yes.
And we still haven't finished asking the questions because he cannot tell us until we ask. Because he can't pull that bit of information out of his head.
It's crazy. And I'm going to put your website and everything on the show notes, but on that, people can find, I think all the books are up right now, but they can still get the ebook.
2 are not. The TO3
Okay.
and Thai Occult 3 and the Satyan book are still around.
Okay.
The rest are actually Miskatonic have 1 and 2 as a web book, and they've just put an audio on it.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Now, they recommended doing that to me, and I went, yeah, do whatever you want. They just said stop sending out PDFs because of copyright and make it available as a web book. And now they've added audio, which a few people have asked for in the past. We've just had the Thai Occult Satyan book translated into Chinese.
Wow.
Which I let them do for nothing and gave them the copyright for that. Because I thought, well, that's going to be a job we'd never get round to. And, I can't read or write Chinese anyway, so how would you answer any questions? Yeah. And slowly the information is getting out there.
And then you guys also, I mean, people can buy amulets from you on the website. I know occasionally you'll do like different rituals that people can be a part of, or
At the moment, the next one is dealing with Saturn. Saturn's about to go into. We do astrological stuff. Besides readings, we do astrological remediation for
Hmm.
groups when if they choose to take part. Usually, every month we'll have a Rahu ritual because Rahu is about the only source of luck at the moment. And it comes as kind of incidental. It's not constant. You'll suddenly have a day where you take a fortune and then do nothing for 4 It's quite bizarre. And also, Rahu is considered Saturn's brother. And Saturn is entering the world astrology in business sector. And it's not going to go well. It's going to be very stressful for business this next, particularly the next 4 months. And next month also, Saturn clashes with Neptune in Aries. Which is going to be interesting. It's like reality and dream clashing. And it's the next 3 or 4 months, it might be a bit nuts. So we do, when there's big stuff like that, we'll do a candle ritual for it. And but for next month, it's just Rahu. But for in March, Saturn and Uranus clash, and that's very dangerous. So we'll do something for protection, avoiding danger and stuff like that.
And are you still? I know it's been a while since I've seen it, but I know you made like a documentary series. So if people wanted to, you could
Um,
watch it at some point, or
no, we did a like a learning thing with the Italian lads where they can join a course. But there's enough of my podcasts online.
Mhm.
There's podcasts on our. There's a last podcast that we did before this one was is on the Facebook page, the Thai Occult books, and I recommend that one as well. A lovely interview. And you're the first person that we've come across since then that we wanted to actually chat to
Oh, appreciate it.
because because I thought it might help and it was well timed, you know.
Appreciate that, and I do appreciate your time and coming on, man.
Always a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for sure for me.
Always a pleasure. We're always around,
Nice.
where we
Thank you.
can be. And if people need anything answering or whatever else, or, you know, if they've bought things in the past that they want to get rid of, and there's always ways to do that, or, if they've got a spirit house in the garden that shouldn't be there, there's ways to remove them, and clean up the life and become spiritually cleaner is important. This year as well, whatever magic form of magic you study, cleanse.
Hmm.
I mean, most shamans are into saging. It works.
Oh, yeah.
Get your house saged for God's sake. Yeah. And also, find work for these people as well, because they're going to be able to build a community, and then the community will understand the benefit of these things. This is the rise. We are in the period of the rise of magic, and we have to rise to meet it.
Nice. I like that. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, may as well be optimistic. We might even survive.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Nice to chat.